All right, so you've got a text, you're ready to do an analytical commentary. Step one is, of course, annotation. There's a lot of different ways to do it, a lot of different ways to approach it. Of course, everything I do has an acronym attached to it, which you can use or choose not to. But of course, I'm going to talk you through annotation and how it works. So in the early stages of the course, basically, you are this wonderful quote. You are to the man who only has a hammer, everything he encounters begins to look like a nail. So that's you. You've got your poor understanding of metalanguage, and everywhere you look, you see that metalanguage. Level 2 is what you're aiming to get towards and build upon from there. It's probably an unlimited possibility. You could get very expert at this, but instead, you're focusing on the text. You're saying, that looks interesting. You're saying, what metalanguage can I use to describe it? So you've got lots of tools to choose from. You've got lots of metalanguage to choose from, and you're hopefully starting to use them in combination. So you're not just hitting everything with the, that's repetition. That's the hammer that you're hitting everything with. Instead, you're saying, this bit's really interesting, and I notice that we've got some repetition there, but also some syntactic ellipsis. And I notice, of course, that that's a declarative sentence. You're starting to build those things upon one another. So anytime you're referring to words or sentences, you probably want to have some metalanguage to sort of go in front of it. So instead of word, lexis, yada, 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 you get the idea. But lots of tools, lots of metalanguage, making it fit rather than forcing the metalanguage into a text where perhaps you're not focusing on the right part. Alrighty, exciting times. You got the text in front of you. You're preparing for an analytical commentary, so you need to annotate it, you need to read it. This is the process I would follow, and preferably have the text in front of you, have some highlighters, have whatever you're going to bring into the SAC, into the exam. Try and keep it consistent in that way. Ideally, you're timing yourself as well. You're probably 10, 15 minutes tops on annotating. Is probably more than you'll be able to do in the exam, but of course, that all depends on how you're going to factor in your exam, how much time you're putting into each section. There's only guidelines on that, and for you it might be different. Some texts might be harder, some sections might be harder. But all right, let's start. So first thing, you read the context and the background really closely. Very, very closely. You've got to be able to picture it. Who's involved? Where are they sitting? The best picture you can put in your mind, the better. Then you're going to read the text itself. Of course, you're going to look for salient, relevant features essential to function and social purpose, and you're going to circle them or highlight them or whatever it is. Keep in mind, try to collect these from across the text, not just one section. So you should have a number of little sections, and then you might, if you've got way too many, you might want to rank them from the most interesting to the least, and keep in mind you want to be across the whole text. Then you're going to reread these particular things that you've highlighted, circled, whatever it is. You're looking for relevant features. Closely annotate with as much metalanguage as you can. So it might be useful to write out the subsystems. So you've got your syntax, semantics, phonology, etc., etc. Let me check where I'm up to. Morphology, discourse, all those things. Draw those down the side and try and throw as much metalanguage as you can. What type of sentence is it? What word classes are the key words? All those sort of basic things, and then try and think of the other sort of things that you can add in as well. Discourse features, stylistic features, all those things. But of course, you want to be annotating that, and as much as possible, you're preparing. That's the bit you're going to talk about in your essay. You've hopefully got enough sections that you can divide it up in register in the little sections that you've got divided, but you've got a really close analysis then. You're noticing just the key features of the text. You can do this probably after you've read the text. Think of, form, do CRAMPS, do FARMS, whatever acronym you prefer, but you're looking for the key things, what's the field, audience, all those things. Noting that down because that'll be the bulk of your introduction. And then you're going to think of, okay, for this text, which structure, which paragraph should I focus on? Register, social purpose is basically always there, whether you want to do register, social purpose, and context together. Basically, you've got those two no matter what happens, you're always going to talk about that. There's always plenty of things to say. Depending on the text, context itself might not be a paragraph you can really explore in detail. If it's not that interesting, if it's just a speech, say in Parliament and no one interrupts, you might just sort of say it's in Parliament, it's serious, it's formal, whatever. But you might want to talk about cohesion and coherence if it's well prepared, if it's rehearsed, if it's organized, that might be a focus. Of course, if it's spoken, and they're doing really interesting things, then you're going to talk about their spoken discourse, regardless of whether it's interesting or not, to be honest. But just keep in mind the examples you're finding, what shape fits best around them, what focus. All right, so like I mentioned, CRAMPS, this is one of the options. This can be your annotation guide. So this isn't mine, this is from Lisa's Study Guides, who made this one up. Context, talking about situation, cultural, social. Social I don't think is mentioned explicitly in the study design, so probably don't worry too much about that. But it is kind of, useful to consider. But of course the cultural context is this social and situational. Social basically is situation and cultural, it's just a subset that you don't need. But anyway, setting, behaviour, relationships, social distance, attitudes, beliefs, customs. So as best as you can, the people are communicating in what way, what's their relationship, how close or far is their social distance, what attitudes are shown, what are their beliefs, and what are their customs as shown through their language. Register, of course, consider the continuum, that's hard to say. Frozen, formal, casual, consultative, intimate, as you sort of keystone phrases, but then add in modality to explore it. Audience, primary and secondary audience, relates to context. So again, primary are the people there, secondary are the people who are watching it later or on replay or on, whatever it is. Mode, written, spoken, digital, signed. Signed hasn't been on examinable content for a while, but it could be in theory. Purpose, why was it written? What is it aiming to achieve? So function, purpose, you might sort of combine into one there. And then, of course, metalanguage you want to use as explained previously.